Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. And I have my dream team in the house. And I'm going to let you know who my dream team is in the house. Those that want to participate in the chat room, find me on Facebook Live, and you can do so. And George Eichhorn gets the lucky straw here to read all the opinions. So you've been drafted for the chat room. All right. Well, welcome back, Coach Bono. Glad to have you as always, my friend. And tell me how successful you've been catching some fish up there in northern Florida.
Oh, we're doing all right. Just every time we throw a line in the water, pull out a fish.
If I ever try to catch with you, I blow them all away because I can't keep my mouth shut. Not that anybody would figure that out anyways. But all right. George Eichhorn, well, we had a good time back in Motown, and here we are back.
We sure did, Scott. It was good seeing you again, and now we're back on this channel, and looking forward to the show.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. I've got one show tomorrow night, and then I'll be doing two on Thursday. And, I'm still working on my book, so I want to get that thing pounded out as quickly as I can. Coach Bono's in there. Mel's in there. Hey, geez, Travis is in there. Bo, working on getting you in there, too. I got some last-minute edits, but I'm going to get you in there, too, pal. If one way or the other. That's what editing is for. When you bring on somebody new and they've been around for a while, it is good stuff. So, all right. So let me give everybody some information here about Inside the Pigskin. Inside the Pigskin being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. We did reach the 900 mark recently. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Being in the chat room is one way to do it. Otherwise, please send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Websites www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter @Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes. With that said, let's get this puppy going. There is a lot to talk about. Well, we're going to start in the college ranks first, okay? Jennifer Cohen is named the first female athletic director in USC history. She serves as a member of the College Football Playoff Committee and is a member of the National Coalition of Minority Football Coaches, and also the working at the University of West Washington. Coach Bonamego, what do you think about USC going with Miss Cohen?
I think honestly, I think we're probably past the point where this should even be news. I think that's great. It's tremendous. Obviously, they feel she's qualified. That's all that matters. I think, I don't know her. I don't really know anything about her. She's got an impressive resume. Right. I hope she does a great job. I'm sure she will. And let's go to the next topic.
Well, you will. You will. And it's a little bit of news, but I like your response. Keep it simple, stupid, and that's what it was.
I don't really care.
You cared enough to make a quality opinion. That's good enough. All right, George Eichhorn, you can take the reins considering Coach is done with it.
Oh, I'm very happy about this, Scott. That's a great development. When you think back, curriculum in colleges, and females have been taking academic courses just like the males have, okay? As far as it goes for sports administration is what I'm talking about, and getting a degree and putting this to practice. So the fact, like Coach says, that we're still talking about this thing is irritating to me also, but it's about time. All I got to say is thank you for doing that. And you know what? We've seen it with the Miami Marlins. We've seen it with other sports. And now we're getting a lot more female officials in the National Football League, which I think is great. And this is wonderful news. I'm happy for her. And it's just about time is all I got to say about this.
All right, Mel. USC's across the city from UCLA.
Yeah, typically USC always goes in-house. We'll try to bring somebody in. I think it's good that they get somebody from the outside, that they bring somebody from the outside in. Take a look at the program. I know they had some issues going on with the scandals, with the admission scandals and things of that nature. I think it's good for them to have somebody else with some fresh eyes that really has never been a part of Southern Cal before, and they come in there. And the fact that she's a female, I think that's great. The climate that we have right now, they're wanting to do away with anything that has to do with affirmative action or diversity or any of that. They want to do away with that. And for USC to do this on their own, that she was saying that she's the most qualified candidate or the candidate that they felt best or most comfortable with, taking the lead on this program. I think that speaks volume of the leadership of the president of USC, and I think it's a bold move. And I don't look for great things, obviously, because I'm a UCLA guy. But I wish her the best of luck. I don't want her to get canned or anything like that. But I wish her the best of luck. But I'm still a UCLA guy.
Yeah, I know. All right, Travis.
I mean, yeah, to a lot of everyone else's points. I mean, it stinks that this is still a story. Just a lot of the time when we're still seeing these new first, it's always like, well, why is this still a story? And unfortunately, it's still a story because it's still happening, right? Like, so it's awesome to see that she had the resume that she had, but not only that, she was able to secure the job. I mean, that's just let's just start there. There's a lot of people out there who have incredible resumes, but for whatever reason, they just aren't able to get their foot in the door. We've seen a billion examples of it. So no matter what, it stinks that we're having to applaud this, but it is something that is worth being applauded, if that makes sense. She's done an incredible job, at the University of Washington, making their move from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. And so she's also been obviously looking into the Big Ten and investigating the conference and what's going to happen with that for the past year. So it's not just someone who is familiar with the conference that they're going in, but she's also familiar with some of the competition. That's a pretty good situation right there for USC. And not only is she a woman, but she is a woman who is obviously qualified, but she is a woman who's obviously qualified with an additional competitive advantage. Oh, and she happens to be from California. Awesome. Let's keep it moving. That's a good situation for USC. Good hire, good job. Hope it works out for you.
All right, Bo, you have the last word.
Yeah, I mean, to your guys' point, it was a great situation for her. She was already an AD with UW. So, I mean, this is a move that should be relatively simple, familiar with the process. So although it's a first for USC, it's not a first for her. So this is a job that she's familiar with. But yeah, obviously she's the most qualified for that job.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about it, Kiming's done a good job with the Miami Marlins. I wish Jennifer Cohen well. All right, on to the next subject. Okay, but we're going to lead off with Travis with this one. Okay, and that's this. For our followers in Detroit and Jacksonville, the Jaguars won 25-7. And Teddybridgewater played a lot. And natesudfeld, we'll see whether or not he's there at the end of camp. I would doubt highly, but they took the snaps. And Goff was off in the game. So, all right, what happened in that contest, Travis?
Whew. Well, unfortunately, we're going to have a disagreement from I'm in the Motormouth Facebook group with the Detroit Lions fans, and I've had some agreement with on some things, but some disagreements on other things. I'm a Jaguars fan. I'm just going to say that I have that slight bias, but I have watched. I mean, I'm a guy who's going to watch the tape. I've watched the game 3 times now, on all 22 and everything. So I see what I see, but I'm acknowledging that I am a Jaguars fan, so I don't have a dog in this fight. Apparently, Teddy Bridgewater was working on basically, a few weeks of practice, realistically, truly like a few days of real practice, and he looked like it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna BS you. He's someone who looked like he played like a guy wearing the number 50 at quarterback. Like, it looked like a linebacker throwing the ball. He missed on a lot of basic throws for an NFL quarterback, and it stinks from a Jaguars perspective because you want to see someone playing at their best so you can appropriately evaluate your roster. It made that tape be not able to be used in very many ways as far as grading coverage for the linebackers and grading coverage for the secondary, because he was just missing on easy 5-yard out routes, easy stop routes that were there, and that stinks. And Jeremy and I had a disagreement on that, unfortunately. However, natesudfeld comes in and starts completing those basic throws. He's not anything to write home about. He's not a good quarterback, in my personal opinion. But he's an NFL quarterback who can complete basic throws that are wide open there. So unfortunately, the depth for the Jaguars is astounding. I mean, we're gonna cut a lot of guys that's going to be starting on other rosters at receiver, potentially at running back, at D-line even. for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And as far as the Lions are concerned, I don't really truly believe that there is any reason for alarm or anything along those lines. I mean, the front side of your roster is really, really, really good. But there's just the question of when guys get hurt, what's going to happen? How much is it going to hurt later in the season? And that's the question that they're going to have to answer. But again, that was the biggest issue. And I'm not 100% sure Teddy is going to be able to beat out Nate unless he shows some tremendous improvement over this next week based on the play on the field.
Oh, good. I like what you came up with. All right, Bo.
I mean, there's not a lot to say about what Detroit did. It was just some sloppy football. Like it wasn't. It wasn't the most enjoyable to watch, just because it was just kind of ugly football. But that's what preseason's about, right? It's to work the bugs out, get people reps, figure out what you have at depth, and get down to your 53 and hope that you got the right 53.
Fair enough. All right, George, you and I left the restaurant early. If the game had been competitive, though, George, would you have stayed to the end of the game and we would have kept talking?
Yeah, probably so. Between bites of pizza, we were dissecting and watching that game. And Travis, you're spot on. I mean, Bridgewater just looked horrible, and I just wasn't happy about it, because even though he's coming in, he doesn't have the playbook studied. He's a veteran. He knows how to play football. He's been around for a long time, needless to say. So that was a little bit eye-opener for me as well. I got to disagree with you, though, Travis, about the depth. Dan Campbell spoke again today to the media, and he says this team has depth, and he's very happy about it. He had much more depth on the Lions this coming season than they had last year. But I will tell you this. There are certain key players, which happens with a lot of teams, they cannot afford to get injured. And one of them, obviously, is Jared Goff. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is another one. So that's why you're not seeing these guys play in the preseason. They're protecting them, and they're trying to make sure they're healthy going into week 1 at Kansas City. But I said, and I agree with Coach Campbell, there is more depth on this team this year, but there's no kidding it. Bridgewater looked terrible. Mel, you called this. You had your doubts, and you have had your doubts on this show about Teddy, and I'm looking forward to after me. I want to hear from Coach and obviously you. But he didn't do anything to me either to impress. And we got a comment here. All right, Scott, the Back It Up Binge podcast. Thank you for watching and listening today. He said, I watched Bridgewater with Miami last year. Not a big fan as well.
Okay, very good. All right, we'll turn over to Coach.
No, it won't be long here, but I think great points. I always look at preseason's more about evaluating the players than it is the team. You're rolling guys in and out of the game. You want to see young players, operate in the base system. Can they get lined up? Do they know what to do? How do they perform against their matchup in the game? And then, do they have the awareness? Can they adjust the situations and all of those things? So you don't necessarily evaluate the team based off of preseason, because everything's watered down.
Right.
But you do definitely, evaluate the players. Parcells used to say, he had a famous saying you say all the time. He'd say, "Show me," and it's like, if you're a young guy, you have to show you belong. If you're an old guy, it's important for you as well that you have to show that you still have it, because it's all about the evaluations at this stage. So, obviously, there may be some questions whether or not, Teddy Bridgewater still has it. So
I'll turn over to you, Mel.
What happened to Adrian Martinez? He didn't play yesterday. Has he secured the backup spot? I mean, are they trying to decide between Bridgewater?
I don't know. I don't know why he didn't play.
He did play well the previous game. I got to the game late, and I didn't get a chance. Well, maybe I don't think I saw the whole game, but
it'll be interesting to see who they play this third one. Like if they.
Adrian Martinez is different. He's entirely different than obviously Jared Sudfeld. He's a bigger quarterback. Teddy. I've been saying it for a while since he was in Minnesota. I mean, you have Adrian Peterson as a running back, and you're not really setting the world on fire. I've never particularly cared for him even when he came out of college. I know a lot of people were high on him. A lot of people think the world of him. I'm sure he's a great guy. I just don't like. I think he holds onto the ball too long. Doesn't make those real tight contested throws. He doesn't give his receivers an opportunity to go out there and make a play. I think he's very careful with the ball. That's why he doesn't turn it over because he's extremely careful. And I think he eats it a lot more than he needs to. But, as far as the game is concerned, again, other than the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, people are really out there evaluating. Like Coach Bono said, they're evaluating players, evaluating them in situations. Can they get lined up correctly? Do they know what they're supposed to do? If something happens, do they know who they're supposed to pick up in blitz protection and so forth and so on? But again, if they have to, like I said, if with what they have now, other than Martinez, and he's entirely different than everybody else that they have at the quarterback position. But if Jared goes down, they're going to be in trouble with the two guys that they have. If they choose between one of those two, Teddy Bridgewater and Nate Sudfeld.
Well, the only thing I'll say to Dan Campbell work with Bridgewater, New Orleans, that's one of the major reasons he's there. And the second thing I can say is it's really hard to see a quarterback wear a number of 50. I mean, really, 50. Oh,
yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, all right. Hey, back it up, Binge Podcast. We appreciate what you did. Look what you did. You got us going here. Thank you very much, partner.
Can I also backtrack on one thing though? I wanted to acknowledge I do not have much insight as far as the Detroit Lions depth, what it would look like last year. So unfortunately, I can't compare what it looks like now versus last year. So Dan Campbell could absolutely be 100% right.
No, I think they have depth.
Right. The Jaguars, I'm comparing, I'm just comparing the depth of the Jaguars, who had freaking 13 draft picks this year and used them all to a team that may have solid depth, but just maybe didn't have the depth on the D line that they needed to make that look competitive, because they were dominated backups to backups, O line and D line, and that's exclusively what I looked at for the first two watches of the game. That wasn't close.
Okay, that's fair enough. All right, onward as we go. Indianapolis Colts grant Jonathan Taylor permission to seek a trade. All right, you know what, Coach? Where do you think would be the best fit for Jonathan Taylor?
Ooh, man, good question.
Well, I try to make him great.
Mm.
I'm kidding with you. I'm just trying.
I hadn't thought of it from that standpoint. I think at the end of the day, he's going to be right where he's at.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, unless somebody like really much in the need, I really don't have much more on that one.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is the asking price in Indianapolis is asking for a lot. So
yeah,
there could be justification, Coach, that you might be right where he's at. But they want to see if they're more or less giving him an opportunity to seek what his trade value is. But in the end, you're probably right on point. Okay, go ahead, George.
Yeah, I think that he's a good player. I mean, these players do this once in a while, obviously, all across the league, demanding trades or want to be traded and all this sort of thing. We'll see if it actually happens or not. But like Coach, I mean, there's a lot of teams in need right now. I can't pick out one or two that stand out to me, but I mean, there's a lot of teams that are still looking. There's going to be a lot of cuts, as we know, this last week and a half that we have here. Well, it's even less than that now of the exhibition season. So he's a good ball player. I mean, there's a lot of teams that can use his talent and use his skill, and I just don't know if it's going to happen or not. It's one of those things where it's got to be a fit, not only for your team, but it's got to be a fit under the cap, and it's got to be a fit for the team that's getting something in return. As you mentioned, Scott, the Colts, they could be asking for too much and won't find any suitors out there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But yeah, he's a good player.
I'll turn over to Bo.
Yeah, I mean, so the problem is the guys that could want him can't afford him and don't have the capital as far as draft capital to give them what they'd want. And then, the Colts have a solid offensive line. They're breaking in a rookie quarterback. So they're going to lean on that run game while he's out there making mistakes. So if you're hoping to have a bounce back as far as production, statistically, this where he's at is probably not a terrible spot to be. Where the places he would want to go, there's just no way that the numbers work. So I think, like Coach said, he's probably going to end up right where he is. Because, I mean, you can't even find a spot for guys like Kareem Hunt. And, I mean,
Right.
it's not like he's the only running back that's an elite talent that's available. So I don't think that he's doing himself any favors by trying to create a situation where he can force himself out. Obviously, jimirsay saying crazy stuff didn't help the situation. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to be able to afford what it is they want for him. And the places that might have a chance at it, he's not going to want to play for. So I imagine he enters this right where he is.
What do you think, Travis?
And that's an unfortunate part of this conversation, to Bo's point, is the running back market, as we've all talked about ad nauseum, is in flames at this current moment in time. So, like, the fact that there are above average running backs, I can't, obviously not elite anymore, but definitely above average solid running back options that you're probably going to be able to get for $6 to $8 million a year, right? Knowing that you would realistically have to give up a second round draft pick. I know the Colts say they're asking for a first, but that's negotiations. You can't start off saying publicly, I'm asking for a second, because then they're going to offer you a third, whatever. They're asking for realistically a second round draft pick, and they probably aren't going to get it with this market, with this running back market, knowing that you can get someone else over here versus paying a second round draft pick and then realistically having to give him what, $10 million a year? Something along those lines. That stinks. And that's the reason that they're giving him that option to look outside of the doors and see what the market's going to give him, because this market is in flames. And I think the Colts kind of know that they have that in their back pocket. Hey, there's nothing else out there. No one's going to offer you anything. Take what we'll give you. But on the off chance that I'm wrong, because it only takes one Cleveland Browns to offer a fully guaranteed, whatever it is, the $200 million contract. There could absolutely be someone out there. And if there is, where's the best fit? So I'm probably going to say someone because no one who's going to be a losing team is going to be willing to give up a high pick, like, first or second rounder. So you're probably talking about someone like Buffalo or Miami. That's like the only places I could think of, like, realistically, that have a true opening that has a chance to truly, like, compete in the playoffs. I would say Arizona, but there's no way they're going to give up a high second round pick, and they're probably going to be bad this year also.
Yeah, I was waiting for that Deshaun Watson reference, and you delivered it. All right, Mel, you're the running back. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts. You see why they've been struggling the way they've been struggling as late. The owner has a whole lot of interest, outside interest. He likes to collect things, guitars and things of that nature. If I'm not mistaken,
Whales,
artwork. Yeah, he's gonna transfer a whale. But a couple weeks ago he said he wasn't going to trade him. Now this week he said he is, or said he would trade him, or he's giving him authorization to go out there and seek a trade. I think he wants to see if there's a market, and if there's a market, then maybe he'll go ahead and pay the guy, because right now we know every team is up against the cap right now. There is no teams that have the salary cap space in order to take on somebody of this magnitude. A guy, I think he's a 4-time Pro Bowler, had all-purpose yards of over 2,000 yards. We know what kind of a player that he is. It's just unfortunate he's stuck in the situation that he's in, but it's probably the best situation for him. As Bo was talking about, they got a decent offensive line. They got a rookie quarterback. They're going to be relying on that running game very much so. I mean, he can go out there, play this year out, see what happens. Maybe if he's able to work something out where he does get franchise tagged or something like that, maybe he can come on the back end. Or maybe the Colts will go ahead and decide to pay him. I mean, he's at that age right now where you could give him a little bit of money. He's only 24 years old, so it makes sense to go ahead and give him some money based on his production. You look at Christian McCaffrey; he got paid, and he hasn't exactly, he hasn't been exactly healthy all the time either. I mean, and it may be something that comes down to the trade deadline. I think Christian McCaffrey got traded during the season, kind of took everybody by surprise when he got traded. Maybe this will be a similar type of situation. Maybe a running back goes down, a team feels that maybe they're just a running back away, and maybe he'll get dealt during the season, but they still have to deal with him as far as his contract in next year.
Do you think the injury has anything to do with this? This is a random question in my head. I just wanted to ask the group.
Do I think the injury has anything to do with him holding out right now?
Well, the team even allowing him this option. Like, do you think they have some kind of inkling that he's maybe not what he was is going to be what he was previously?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's it. I think he's probably using the injury as far as slow rolling, slow rolling, getting back to camp. I think he might be using the injury for that. Try to use it as a little bit of leverage to try to get some things done for himself. But I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be fully recovered. I don't think this is going to be something that's going to linger on. Like, when Grant Hill injured his ankle, and all of a sudden, he was never the same.
Right.
All right, let's go to the chat room. Let me go to the chat room real quick. Michael Roberts is a good friend of mine, George. I'll just read this one.
Sure.
Jets is a good fit for a second-round pick. Thanks, Mike, for joining us. We're in touch on Facebook all the time, and we appreciate you chiming in today and talking some football, Mike. Thank you very much. All right, George. Anything you want to say as a last word on it?
No, I agree with the panel. I really think it's going to be difficult to move him, especially this time, but we'll see what happens.
And well, we're going to go to the Michigan Wolverines. They impose a 3-game suspension to Jim Harbaugh for following an NCAA investigation into recruiting violations. He'll miss the first 3 matchups against non-conference opponents, meaning East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green returns to the Big Ten opener against the Rutgers on September 23rd. Coach, I know you don't like to talk about these kind of things, but is Michigan trying to do a little bit of damage?
It's a total vet move.
Huh?
It's a total vet move.
Yeah.
It's a veteran move. I mean, it's whatever happened is last I heard it was going to be a 4-game suspension, and then something broke down. So the key is this is self-imposed. So they're going to take the weak part of the schedule, the first 3 tune-up games, the 3 Michigan Wolverine preseason games. He's not going to coach in those, right? Then Big Ten plays starts. He's there, all right. And what they're banking on is with this self-imposed penalty is that when the NCAA does come to whatever, they're going to say, well, he's already served, 3 games. We're not going to sit him another game, or they want to make it a 4-game. He'll miss another preseason game the next year if he's still there, if he's not in the NFL.
All right. Thank you, Fernando. Great show. We appreciate you being on. And he's actually from LinkedIn. By the way, Coach, ought to connect with Fernando on LinkedIn. He's a really nice guy. All right. Well, let's go back. Yeah, he's really super. I've actually known him, Coach, a long time. And he was one of the first people at the beginning that when I got this whole program started, that we've been friends since. So let's go back to the chat room again. Back it up. Binge podcast. Read Miami's interested, especially since they lost out on Cook. Acne banged up too. All right, well, you know what? Binge podcast. We'll keep an eye on that. All right, George, what do you think? Wolverines.
It doesn't surprise me at all. Obviously, for the reasons that Coach mentioned, to have that hanging over, that was not an option. It was not an option, even though they says, oh well, the committee might not decide till after the NCAA committee might not decide till after the full season is done. It was not an option for wardemanuel and the university. They had to take this action based upon the knowledge they have of the situation, the infractions that occurred, and they're hoping that he doesn't get other games tacked on. It's just a bad situation. I mean, I know Coach Harbaugh doesn't want to talk about it, and he can't during the investigation, but it's a black mark on him. It's a black mark on U of M. But they'll move forward. They're still one of the top teams in the nation. They'll move on. And like you said, Coach, these are basically just, run-up games and exhibition games, if you will, the opponents they're playing in this first 3 games that he's going to miss.
The only thing I'll say before I turn over to Bo, have some great new faces in the chat room tonight. I'm really impressed.
Yeah.
But not only the new faces, but what about the comments that these people are putting out? Tell you what, back it up, Binge Podcast. You should look me up. Maybe there's a connection there. We could bring you on one of these bad boys, and we can do some collaboration here. So look us up. And when you stay on the show, I'll give you all of our contact information again. So all the new faces in the chat room, great thanks from all of us here on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. We'll turn it over to Bo. Go ahead, Bo.
Yeah, so I mean, like Coach said, this is just a smart move. He gets to take off a couple of games that they're easily going to coast through. And if something comes, hopefully it's time served, right? That's kind of the goal there. And he's back by the time the schedule starts to actually mean something. So, and then, like they said, if it doesn't get resolved by the end of the year and there is something for next year, it will be in a similar situation where it's against a team that they're going to cruise through regardless of who's coaching. And so, that's one of the things about college versus the NFL, right? At the NFL, every week, even if it's the lower team on your schedule, they can beat you every week. If you roll out in one of your first games and you're a power school and you're going against Temple, you're probably not losing that game, right? So it's a different animal. So yeah, I agree in that way. It was just a smart move to kind of preemptively say, hey, we did what we thought you were going to want to do. And hopefully that appeases the NCAA and they can move on from it. But, at the end of the day, if when it comes to college recruiting, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right?
The old Bill Belichick motto. Yes.
Now that's a good way to follow up, Travis, after Bo. Bo knows what Bo knows, and Bo just gave you the baton to take over, Travis.
Hey, man, it is funny because that comment is literally the comment I've been using since my freshman year of college. It hits my heart that you just said it out loud. I appreciate that. But that's something that I've learned in playing the defensive back. Every play you're holding someone, every play you're cheating. So if you're not cheating, you're not trying. That's the NFL. I just feel like that's every play there's a hole. So this is an interesting workaround, I'll say, for the university. Because they were already in the negotiations and they kind of at minimum have an inkling. They have an idea of what the NCAA's where their head's at as far as what the suspension should be. And for whatever, they already rejected the 4-game suspension originally that was in the negotiations. So them doing this is, like both said, it's sort of like a time served thing, but they know the NCAA wants more blood. However, this seems like it may be the best workaround for both the NCAA and the university because, Harbaugh was already interviewing for the Broncos position this year. He's, the hope is, the word is that he's interested in the Chargers job if that becomes available. I mean, who isn't? Let's be honest. But so you have to assume that if they're reasonably good, he's going to be in this next round of interviews. And for the university's sake, the hope is probably that he gets an NFL role somewhere else. And then next year, they're just going to have to pay whatever, the penalty is, lose a scholarship here or there, or, get a slap on the wrist because he's already served 3 games. Let's say they wanted 6. What is that equal to? I don't know. Again, you're losing like 1 or 2 scholarships. You're on probation for some time frame. Fill in the blank. So that's probably what this is. It's just kind of like, hey, man, we did our part. We couldn't come to an agreement. He's no longer here. This is great for everyone. And that's probably the hope in this situation.
Okay, Mel.
Yeah, I think it was, like Coach Bono said, I mean, they're getting out in front of this, and it's a smart thing to do. They know the suspension is coming down. They had an agreement in principle. The NCAA, for whatever reason, rejected that agreement. And so Michigan is going to get out in front of it. They're going to go ahead and self-impose suspension. First 3 games, I don't know if he's still allowed to coach during the week like he was with the other previous announced suspension.
Yeah, he is, Mel.
He is.
Yep.
So, and then whatever happens, whenever they decide, whatever they come up with, then he can serve it later, next year. They decide to table it till next spring or next winter, then he can serve the remainder of that suspension next year, which will again be against the weaker part of the schedule, which is smart. But again, you have to remember, because of Michigan, we've all learned who App State is now. So you can't take these teams for granted. You got to go out there and still practice and so that you're able to and prepare just like you're going to be facing Ohio State, because I promise you, this is it may not be your biggest game on the schedule, but it is that other opponent's biggest game on the schedule.
Right.
And they found that out when they went down there and played App State one time, or when they played App State one time and ended up losing that ball game.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is Michigan did damage control ahead of time, and there you go. What you got? Hell of a game. Good. I like that, Coach. Hell of a game.
Yep.
That's to Mel's point. That was our whole deal, and we went. We took the Chippewas down to Stillwater and beat national. 20th ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. Now, Gundy still doesn't count it as a win, but I don't care. We won the game. Period.
Oh, that's all right. Hey, listen, you know what? More power to you. Every program can use a signature win, and evidently your team. Hey, listen, I've seen Central Michigan play FAU, and they have a pretty good program up in Mount Pleasant. They really do, and facilities are good. I've driven up there, so yeah. The only thing I'll say is Michigan's done a good job with damage control in advance, so more power to them. All right, 2 more topics. I'm going to turn over to Mel. Baker Mayfield is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers starting quarterback over Kyle Trask. All right, Coach, do you think that was the right decision?
I do. You know, I mean, I think Baker, you know, love him, like him, hate him, whatever. I mean, the guy's got some moxie. He's a competitive guy. You know, I think, you know, is he perfect? No. I mean, but he gives you a chance. You know what I mean? He does, you know, he finds ways, unorthodox ways to get things done. And, you know, I like what he did last year with the Rams. And, man, you know, I wish him well. I really do.
George?
Yeah, I think he's realized that, you know, it takes work to be in this league, and it takes a lot of work to be a starter in this league. So I also, like Coach said, I mean, I think he's got a lot of moxie. He's got a lot of talent, and hopefully surround himself with some good receivers, a good offensive line, and a running game. I mean, that's all important, obviously, for a quarterback. But yeah, he's got a lot of talent. He's got a chance here now to show, as he did with, you know, a little bit with the Rams too. But he's got a chance to show that he belongs there, and he belongs as a starter. So I, for one, am pulling for him. I hope he does well.
All right, I'll just mention this chat real quick. Hey, Chad Tatima, how you doing, everyone? How you doing, Chad? Thanks for being on. All right, go ahead, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the smart move. He's a veteran quarterback. You know he can win you games. You know, the thing with Baker is he's just inconsistent when it comes to decision making. When he makes smart decisions, he can win you games. And when he doesn't, when he gets, you know, a little bit rattled or a little ahead of himself, he makes mistakes. And in the NFL, you know, mistakes end games real quick for you. So, but his ability to do things off schedule and rally a team around him, it's why he was able to go into LA with 2 days, you know, on the practice squad and go in and win a game, right? So, I mean, he's not void of talent for sure. It's the decision making that's always the question mark. But, you know, in this scenario, you have to roll out with the vet and then see what you have as the year goes.
Okay, Travis.
I mean, yeah, all the points have been made. I have nothing else. I'm joking. But no, if you talk to Tampa Bay Bucs fans, and I have a few in my circle, if you're a Trask fan, you believe he won that quarterback battle. If you're a Mayfield fan, you believe he won that quarterback battle. They seem to just be split on it. It just depends on where you started in this equation. If you hated Trask at first, Mayfield won because he looked like they looked nearly the same. They with obviously major differences, but the biggest part of this equation is Mayfield didn't have to beat out Trask. Trask had to convincingly beat out Mayfield. Mayfield was brought in by this staff for a reason. And that reason, more likely than not, was that they simply didn't have the trust that Trask was going to be able to carry this team. Cool. So if that's the case, then Trask was going to have to show convincingly, like it can't be moderately close, that he was the best quarterback to lead this team. In my personal opinion, he didn't do that. It was still close enough that he made it a coin flip, and unfortunately, it landed tails. But the second part of that equation is it's easier to go from Baker to Trask, right? Like you can do that, and it's not much of a thing. But if you go from Trask to Baker, it just feels like you made the wrong decision because you brought this guy in for that purpose. So if it's even moderately close, you have to go with the guy who seems to be the more veteran presence. And to Bo's point, a guy who can come in on a few days practice and lead a team, and have the team surround him and just play that ball control offense. They seem to will need to be playing in Tampa Bay. So, yeah.
Okay, Mel.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Toddbowles knows that he's on the hot seat. And if I'm a coach, I'm going to go with somebody who has some NFL starts versus somebody who doesn't. Now, granted, they drafted Trask in the second round, so they obviously felt pretty good about him and his talents. I mean, he probably looks good getting off the bus. He looks the part. He's 6'5", 230 pounds. I mean, he's a big, sturdy guy. Probably has a big arm, but he doesn't have a whole lot of experience. Now, if Baker Mayfield starts having a little trouble during the season, then maybe we'll see Kyle Trask. But again, Toddbowles is coaching for his career right now. He's on the hot seat. People thought he should have got fired after the last season. So he's on the hot seat right now. I mean, and he's got to hitch his wagon to Baker Mayfield. I would do the same thing. It doesn't surprise me because he does have some NFL starts, like Coach Bono says. He does have some moxie about him. There's things that you like about him. There's things you don't necessarily like about him. But, you forget about the personalities. You look at him as a football player. You see what he did at Oklahoma when he was there. The guy put up some big-time numbers and, won the Heisman Trophy. So, there is some talent there. So I would definitely, it doesn't surprise me that he won that job. I really always thought it was his job. I just think they just said it was a competition. But I really believe that was when he signed there, that was going to be his job, that he's going to win the starting job there.
Well, think about it. Last year, Tampa Bay finished 8-9 with Tom Brady, 8-9 with Tom Brady. And nobody said it was going to ever be an easy task to follow. But here's what Baker Mayfield has to do to succeed. 1, stay off social media. 2, show he's grown up. And 3, play football. If he can do all 3 of those, then I'm rooting for him. If he trips up anywhere along the lines there, then as far as I'm concerned, that's the end of the line, and he'll be a relegated backup. But I'm pulling for him. I really, really am. But stay off social media. That has killed this guy. He's got to show signs of maturity and blend in with the community, and hopefully he'll be able to utilize this as a fresh start. And bear in mind, he's a little familiar with the division he was in since he was at Carolina a little bit last year. So I wish him well. All right, final topic for me, and then Mel takes over. The Ravens' infamous 24-game preseason winning streak is over. All right. I had no choice but to put it in. All right, Coach. Say a lot or say nothing, but it's over either way.
It's over. Man, they don't count, but they all matter. So it's preseason, still undefeated.
Good enough. I knew where you were going with it. That's why you really conformed to the KISS theory, and that's okay with me. Some shows require the KISS theory, Coach, and we definitely hit on one tonight. No Hakuna Matata, no problem there. Relax. All right, George.
Well, everybody likes to talk about it, but obviously, and we discussed it on a past show, but Coach John Harbaugh, he means business. He wants to win those games. But hey, if you're going to go out, that's the best place to go out with the whole nation watching Monday Night Football. Yep. And, you got Joe Buck there and the broadcast booth, and everybody's talking about your win streak and that sort of thing. But no, all kidding aside, it's been fun to talk about, but it really, in the big picture, it doesn't mean anything. The games don't mean anything, but they have a talented team. Let's face it. The Ravens are a very talented team. So hats off for that long streak, and it obviously had to come to an end sometime.
Yeah, on the Beltway. All right, so there you go. All right, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, the streak was impressive, obviously, and I mean, the games don't matter, but you still want to win those games. That being said, that's probably one of the most enjoyable preseason games I've watched in a long time. It was a primetime game. It came down to the last second. It was a long kick. It was a battle all night. So it was a fun watch. It wasn't extraordinarily sloppy football. There were moments, but no, I mean, if you're a Ravens fan, it's a bummer to see it end, but you knew it was going to at some point. But more than anything, it just made for some good football during preseason, which, let's be honest, there's not enough of.
Yeah,
especially when during this particular week here where everybody's talking about them playing the reserves compared to what you'll end up seeing next week. All right, Travis.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to see those guys who are fighting for roster spots also like fighting to win the game, fighting at the last second. I mean, this game again came down to a kick with the clock expiring. Well, not expiring, but it was like less than 20 seconds left, basically expiring. Nearly a 50-yard field goal. And that's the way your 25 game preseason winning streak comes to an end. Like, it was already an impressive streak, but in that streak, in such a competitive fashion, still, even in your loss, the Ravens still get that tip of the cap. They still get that respect that is deserved for having a team that's looking and willing to compete in the way that they are. So good job, Washington, but also, yeah, that just shows that same thing that we talked about last week. Is this is a team that is looking to compete at all times. They are chocked full of depth, and unfortunately, we jinxed them by talking about it last week, and immediately they lost. That's
There you go. That's what you call the inside the pigskin jinx. Before I turn over to email, we have a couple people that have corresponding YouTube channels that back it up, Binge Podcast and also Tino's Time. Tell you what, you subscribe to our podcast, we'll subscribe to yours and let us know at South Florida Tribune at gmail.com that you did. And I guarantee you we will go out there and subscribe to yours as well. So it's good to see some activity on YouTube. All right, go ahead, Val.
I hadn't heard of this. I really hadn't heard of the streak until we talked about it last week and it came up during the broadcast. I don't know how many other people had heard of it. Heard that they had that kind of streak going on since President Obama had been in office, that they hadn't lost a preseason game. So now they got a target on their back. And when they had the joint practices, that was the thing that that's the thing that Washington was talking about, is that they're going to go ahead and snap this streak. And it was a competitive game. And for people who say it's not good football, look, I was one of those guys, man, that was the bottom of the roster that was battling for a roster spot, and it matters. It may not be your household names, the people that you're accustomed to watching, the people that you pay to watch, but it matters to every one of those guys out there. This is their opportunity. It's their opportunity to go out there and make a play or just the opportunity to be a part of professional football. It may come to an end on cut down day, but it matters. And to me, I look at it a little bit differently. You're looking at the guys that are trying to make the club, and you see the amount of effort. Coach Bono, the kind of effort and kind of work that it takes to get yourself in that position. So, I appreciate these guys and their effort and what they're doing out there. And it mattered to those guys in Washington. I mean, they didn't want to be the ones to have their names associated with that streak ending, it mattered to the guys in Baltimore. They didn't want to be the guys whose names were associated with that streak ending. But again, like it goes to show the type of culture that they built up there, John Harbaugh, and it kind of leads into what I want to talk about when we get to the next segment.
Well, we will in a minute. You're talking about John Harbaugh. You know what? That next segment is now Mel Farrer. Go ahead.
So, Coach, I'm glad that you're here today because I'm listening to these pundits all day long, and I don't know if you watch the pundits on all day long and what they talk about on TV, but a lot of these guys really believe. I mean, their egos are just so big that they really believe that they know more than NFL executives or NFL coaches or even NFL owners. And when it comes to the biggest thing that I hear, that when it comes to the quarterback, when you have a young quarterback, we have a lot of the young quarterbacks that are going to be playing this year. For the development of a young quarterback, in your opinion, Coach Bono, is it necessary that the head coach be an offensive-minded coach or an offensive coordinator type of coach?
Man, that's a great question. I mean, you go back, the guys that have come in and done really well, I think have been in that system. I don't think it's a necessity, but I do think it's an advantage. But I mean, there's so many factors that play into it. With a young quarterback and his success, I mean, I think it's play. I think that comes into play with play selection. I think the head coach, if he knows he has a young quarterback and he's an offensive-minded coach, he's probably going to be maybe a little bit more sensitive or influential in making, having input on roster decisions that might build around that young quarterback, even if it means being at the expense of the defense or the special teams. I don't necessarily disagree with that strategy, because if you're playing a young guy, you want to protect them because they can just as easily be wrecked. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we've seen that scenario play out, more times than the guys that have been successful. The guys, and everybody wants to say it's a bust, right? Well, they're not always busts. It's just maybe the circumstances weren't right
Right.
to enable this kid to mature into that role, and sometimes they are busts, because the guy doesn't know how to study, he doesn't want to study, has other habits outside of football that maybe would deter him. But if all of those things are equal, if everything's equal, I say yes, it is a definite advantage to have an offensive, minded play calling coach.
George, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, Mel. I think that, don't forget you got a quarterbacks coach now, you have an offensive coordinator, and you have the head coach. So I don't know if it's totally necessary that the head coach has got to be an offensive genius or an offensive mind, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And, the kids that are coming out, like you said, Coach, these kids are coming from different programs. They're coming from different backgrounds, different colleges, and they were probably, obviously, a really good player to get back into the draft and be drafted by the NFL team. So there's no question about the talent that's there. But again, I'm not necessarily certain that the head coach has to have an offensive playbook. But I tell you what, the Lions, for example, did not help themselves when they brought in Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia was a defensive guy, and they bring him in as head coach, and it just didn't work out here in Detroit. So offensively, I mean, Stafford still had good numbers. I mean, I'm not saying that, but he was a veteran. So I'm comparing apples and oranges here because Stafford was a veteran as opposed to a young quarterback coming out there. But that totally backfired in Detroit. I mean, Patricia just, obviously it wasn't something that anybody was proud of, and he left under some very trying circumstances. But I think that, you have to have some sort of understanding that there is going to be a set of extra eyes, a little bit more protection, and a little bit more needed to develop a young quarterback like that.
Well, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of agree. Like, I don't think you have to have a offensive guru. You have to have a good OC. If you don't, though, but then some of it comes down to fit, right? Because I mean, take Anthony Richards, right? He's going to play for the Colts. He's going to start immediately, and although he is an amazing athlete, I don't think his game necessarily reflects starting day one, right? He misses some of those easy throws that are close range. I think he actually would have been a better fit going the next pick in Seattle because of Seattle's player development, right? And he wouldn't have had to start week one. So sometimes, I think that offensive coach can bring that guy along. And sometimes I think it's just fit. And they need to let these kids kind of grow into that position. And so do you need it? No, but your offensive coordinator has to be pretty smart.
Travis?
I think I'm going to be the one contrarian here. And it stinks because I'm a defensive back. I love defense. That's my area. However, in today's NFL, I'm going to have to disagree, and I'm going to say, no, you do have to have an offensive-minded head coach, and it's for one big reason. The majority of NFL teams who are starting rookie or young quarterbacks are those teams who are drafting at the front of the draft, which already means that you're going into a team that is a bad team. For the most part, they're going to. There's no guarantee on that, but for the most part, these are teams who are generally expected to not have much of a supporting cast, and you're not expected to win as many games. So you have two scenarios that's going to happen. Either you're going to have a great offensive coordinator, great. You have this defensive-minded coach, awesome. You have this great offensive coordinator, and then you have a wonderful first season in which you realistically probably hit a ceiling of 500. What's going to happen that next season? That offensive coordinator is going to get hired somewhere else. And you're going to start over in a new offense the next season. And it's going to stunt your growth as a quarterback. Like, that is nearly guaranteed. That's what's going to happen. That's your best case scenario. Your worst case scenario is you crash and burn, and maybe you keep that offensive coordinator, or maybe he gets fired. Who knows? But nevertheless, you may have 2, 3, 4 different offenses within your first 4 years. and now you're at your fifth year option. We don't even know what's going. Like, is this the guy? We don't know, and that's unfortunately where we are with this. It stinks, but that's what today's NFL is when you have these college spread offenses now basically being, that's what NFL teams have turned into. So you almost need to verify that you're going to have that continual same offense, same leadership, which means you kind of have to have that NFL head coach has to be that person, because you know for sure he's going to be there no matter what. He can't leave like the OC can.
Right. Yeah, and Travis, you brought up a great point. And that was my philosophy, my thought process as well, is that, you know, a high draft pick, one of the worst team, probably a new coach who's really trying to find his way in the league, never been a head coach before, so you got a lot of young coaches there. And if you do happen to catch the world on fire, and that offensive coordinator all of a sudden becomes a hot commodity, and he's gone, and so now you bring, and then as an organization, you allow him to take his number one guy and his number two guy, and now you're bringing in somebody else from somewhere else, and you're installing a whole new offense. That's what happened with Matt Ryan when Shanahan left. I mean, they allowed what is his name, Shanahan, to take McVay with him, or whatever other folks that he wanted with him, to San Francisco. And so they brought in Dirk Cutter, and I've never been a fan of Dirk Cutter, and all of a sudden Matt Ryan looks like he can't play anymore, right? Yeah. So I don't think you necessarily have to have that offensive coach. I mean, I can give you examples of the yin yang, in which I think the offensive coordinator is very, very, very important, but the key is being able to keep that offensive coordinator, or be able to keep the continuity of that offense when you have a young quarterback. Typically, like we said, high round draft picks, quarterbacks, they go to bad franchises. So new coach, probably terrible ownership, front office, not all that great. Every now and again, you get an opportunity, you fall down somewhere, and everything is great before you fall down. Sometimes falling is best when you're one of those quarterbacks, because you fall
to the Chiefs.
Fall into a great situation. Aaron Rodgers fell. It didn't. That worked out pretty good for him falling. Yeah, I don't necessarily, my opinion, I listen to these pundits all the time, and I swear to God, I mean, they'll only hire, if I'm having a new quarterback or a young quarterback, I only want an offensive-minded coordinator or an offensive coordinator to be my head coach. He has to have an offensive coordinator. So the guys on the defense, they'll never get an opportunity, the way these guys talk, defensive coordinators will never get an opportunity to become a head coach. Hell, Coach Harbaugh was a special teams guy. And he hasn't done all that bad,
right? But no, it's a good situation though, right? Like if you're a defensive coach, you have to go to a team with an established quarterback. You got to go to or have a fully established team, and that's your only option as a defensive.
You got DeMeco Ryans. He was a defensive guy. He's down there in Houston. I don't know who their offensive coordinator is. I would imagine, since he's been around the Shanahans for a while, that maybe they took somebody from over there or brought someone from over there, or we're going to run some type of similar offense that they ran. I'm pretty sure he's pretty familiar with that offense, not from as far as running it, but he's going to have a strong offensive coordinator, strong OC, somebody who's been in this business for a long time, a young one, that has brand new, fresh ideas, and a good quarterback coach as well, in order to develop that kid. Otherwise, that job is going to be a 2 or 3 year deal for him. That's it, and he'll be back to coordinate. Scott, I'll throw it back to you.
All right, thank you, Mel. I have a few thoughts. Number one, quarterbacks die easily when you have too much change at the offensive coordinator position. I've seen so many quarterbacks that come out that had a lot of potential, and the one I like to mention, believe it or not, is Joey Harrington. If there wasn't so much turnover with the offensive coordinator, you almost wonder what would have been. Number two, the NFL could be renamed the IFL, the Impatient Football League, because that's what you've got right now. There's a lot of impatience when it comes to these guys. And number three, I still believe that a quarterback should sit 1 year no matter what and carry a clipboard. And that's why I referenced the Impatient Football League. So all you guys did my talking, and those are the three analogies that I can really provide here.
Redshirt freshman.
What's that?
Oh, redshirt freshman, Scott. I was just saying.
Right, well, that's true. I mean, so many. I don't know. Nowadays we can talk about what determines a bust, but sometimes bust to me. Don't tell me that Jim Plunkett was a bust because he left the New England Patriots and subsequently won a Super Bowl out west. I mean, a change of scenery. It does happen that these number top pick quarterbacks can go ahead and be salvaged somewhere else. Too many people talk about how many they fail, but very few people realize how many work out, but maybe later on.
I didn't realize Fran Tarkenton played for the Giants. He played for the New York Giants originally?
Yeah, I believe he did, and then he went over to Minnesota.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. I don't know what I was watching something, saw something today. It's Fran Tarkenton with the Giants. What is that? Might have been against. Matter of fact, it was against Detroit. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Somebody had sent me a video.
Hey,
Scott,
you know what?
Scott, you made a good point though.
What's that?
You know what I'm saying, Scott? You made a good point though. I mean, all quarterbacks don't work to the point of the consistent change in quarterbacks and in offensive coordinators then results in the different types of offenses being taught to each quarterback. And unfortunately, every quarterback doesn't work well in every system. Like you have a quarterback who's going to be incredible in the West Coast scheme, and it's going to be a terrible in a vertical passing scheme, and they're just not the same. And so it's like that is a good point that you could call someone a bust simply because they didn't work in fill in the blanks offense, and you've changed their offense 2 to 3 times and never put them in the offense that worked best for you. So that just depends on you having a quarterback coach who's flexible enough and smart enough to find what you're good at and do something and do just that and just hammer the other teams with just that. And most coordinators probably just aren't that guy. They just have their scheme, their playbook.
They got too big of an ego.
But the main thing that has to be understood here, though, just because a quarterback doesn't work out well in his original draft place doesn't mean they're not going to work out later. It does happen. I mean, obviously Troy Aikmans don't grow on trees, so they stay in one place, they win a Super Bowl and never go anywhere else. Those don't happen.
Troy was struggling initially, and because they drafted a kid from Miami, in the supplemental draft, if I'm not mistaken,
I think I know. Yeah, wasn't it Walsh?
Was it Walsh? I can't remember. I might have been.
Walsh, if I remember correctly.
But I knew when they hired Norv Turner that Troy was going to be all right because I played with the Rams. Norv came from the Rams. He came, and that was Ernie Zampese, Don Coryell. So I knew what he was getting. I was like, okay, Troy's about to be all right now. He's about to set the world on fire because they really, emphasized the running game, and they're real smart. Ernie Zampese, real smart guy, man. I mean, a super smart guy. And Norv was real. I mean, he was like, that was like his mentor, and Norv just absorbed everything. And Norv took it to another level, and they went out there and they won a lot of football games. Now, when Jimmy got fired, Jerry Jones didn't allow him to take any of his coaches. He didn't allow him to take no coaches with him to Miami. Everyone had to stay there.
Yeah, and look where the Cowboys are at now. So I'll leave that alone. The curse of Jimmy Johnson. And for those of you out there wonder what the curse of Jimmy Johnson is, sorry, Barry Switzer, that Jimmy Johnson gave you a ring you didn't deserve. And I don't know if you guys have a Christmas card, but we'll leave it at that. But no, sorry. I have some Cowboy followers, and I do respect what they do in Dallas. They have a brand new stadium. They've done a great job there. And they're a very profitable organization. So as a whole, you can't knock the Cowboys overall. But their track record in the playoffs speaks for itself. So lots of good points across the board. The bottom, I think the main thing is when you change offensive coordinators too many times, when you ask a quarterback to learn system after system after system, you've gone out there, coach. You know what a playbook, how big it is. Mel, you played with one. You know that those things are what you call 100-page jobs. They probably have all kinds of things that I would never know in applied geometry and all that business or geography. Whatever. But whatever. All right. But meanwhile, great broadcast tonight. Really enjoyed everything in the chat room. So with that said, we're getting close to wrapping her up here. So, Coach, obviously, give us the obvious answer as to how you can get a hold of me. They can get a hold.
Well, we're getting LinkedIn right here. All right. Out on the water. All right. The gun range, or now that we're getting close to high school football, it'll be at a high school stadium near you on a Friday night. Love going.
Look at this guy.
Love going to high school. Watch high school football.
Yeah, did you hear about that stadium that they have in Texas that they spent $30 million on?
Yep.
Yeah, that's incredible. Love it this time. They're starting to have more ways to get a hold of you, Coach. That's what this is all about. Talking football, meeting new people, talking to our incredible people in the chat room. All right. With that said, Mel, go ahead and let everybody know they can get a hold of you.
Find me on all the social media at Melfar Jr., Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Threads, Instagram. Find me at Melfar Jr. And then keep up what we have going on for young folks here in Georgia and also up in Michigan at melfar.org.
So how you doing on Threads, Mel?
I don't know.
You like it? Oh, you don't know. Okay. I have to check it out. I've heard about it. I've heard about Threads through you a couple of times, partner, but I don't know if I'm ready to take the thread plunge yet. All right, Travis, go ahead.
You can find me on most socials, I'll say, at Travis D. Holmes. You can find me on Twitter at Trav Loves Bacon. Trav, yeah, you got it. Trav Loves Bacon. Thanks, Coach. Yes, and you can find my writings for the Jacksonville Jaguars on bigcatcountry.com. And yeah, you can find me here every week talking NFL, talking football, and if anybody has any needs on, some competition conversation, if we're facing the Jaguars this week, or just talk about the general AFC South, I'm absolutely available to, as I'm a free agent on any other podcast. I appreciate you guys having me.
Look at this. Coach is writing things up as if he was coaching here, doing all these diagrams and all. This guy got it in his blood.
He's flipping through the playbook.
Look at this guy. Look at the spirit. Let this guy go fishing 1 or 2 weeks and come back on fire, Coach. Look at this
man
guy.
Said, catch me at the gun range. The gun range. Not hey.
By the way, there is a motivational side of Coach Bono. This guy is a cancer survivor, and we are proud to have this guy on this panel.
Good to be here.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. All right, Bo. Bo knows how to let people know where to find you.
Yep. So you can find me on YouTube at Football-Talk, Twitter, my handle right there down below, and just about any other social media is just Football Talk with Bo, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, it's all pretty much the same. And that's pretty much where you can find me all the time.
Yeah, looking forward to having you on every Tuesday. You're a hit all the time, Bo. Look at all this love that you get out there. We appreciate your knowledge. We appreciate you being the new guy here. And although I've known you a long time, it was inevitable that you were going to get in the rotation, and you've done an outstanding job the couple of weeks, and looking forward to having you on as often as you want to come on. All right, we'll save the author or one of them for last.
All right. Well, my book is called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, and we've had some great broadcasters in Detroit, including football with Van Patrick and Bob Reynolds and Frank Beckman and Mark Champion, and our current announcers, Dan Miller and Lomas Brown. So we've been blessed with so many good football announcers in Detroit, but the book has all sports, not just football. Scott's in the book too. He interviewed Muhammad Ali and he interviewed Jimmy Connors, two of the all-time greats. And there's a link to purchase the book at the end of my column. So if you go to sports, to South Florida Tribune, and then you drill down to Motor City Tribune, which I write for, you'll see at the end of my column a link to get the book. So you can also reach me on LinkedIn. You can reach me on Yahoo at gicorn@Yahoo. And you can also reach me at X at SanGSports99. And find me here on Inside the Pigskin, 108 Stitches, Sports Exchange, and all these wonderful programs that Scott's got going here on the network.
Thank you, George. Once again, it was good seeing you last week. All right, so let me go over our information really quickly. One more time, Inside the Pigskin being broadcast around the world. The audio version of this show, Inside the Pigskin, can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. As I mentioned earlier, any corresponding YouTube people that tune in here, you subscribe to us and you just email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to reciprocate. Want to be a guest? You can participate in the chat room, or once again, send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Want to advertise cost efficiently? Call me 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter @Tribune South. And I am working on a couple books. One is a textbook coach. Okay. And another one is an actual book about adjusting to new media as well. So I have my personal story tacked on to the new times. And then I have a book here with just mainly the new times that I'll be teaching a class this fall over at Eagle Corp later on. So I'm looking forward to everybody being in it. And I think it's great. And I'm very blessed to have such great individuals that I work with week in and week out. Because of your presence, that makes it a whole lot of fun. So, I really have nothing else to say except I want to thank everybody for joining us. More importantly, on behalf of Coach Bono, George Eichhorn, Melfar Jr., Travis Holmes, and Bo, this is Scott Morgan off the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next Tuesday night. Good night, everybody.